Good afternoon, everyone. Very good to see you all. Welcome at the Tygron Educational Event 2020. This is the 5th time that we are organizing this event at Tygron, but it's the first time we're doing it online. So thank you very much for your flexibility and joining us online. As you know, especially working at educational institutions, it's been quite a challenge the last weeks to change your regular business to doing everything online. So for us, this is also a bit of a challenge, also a very good opportunity, because now we're able to have some of our users from outside the Netherlands join us today, which is very nice. And we are gaining some experience in this first online meeting, and maybe if it works out well, this will be our new standard. So thank you very much for joining. My name is Henk van Hardeveld. I'm the CEO at Tygron. I will run you through the webinar today and run you through the program. Also, I would like to give a little hi and special thanks to Hansje, who joined us today, who has been doing all the yeah, there she is, who has been doing all the organizing of this event. So I'm just the one who runs you through, but Hansje is the mind behind it. It's very nice that you can be here during your leave. Right. Before we start with the content of today, some practicalities. As I said, this was the first time that I'm hosting this kind of session, so I need a little bit of your help to get this going all right, which will probably work out. The first question is to please keep your microphone muted during the session. I understood a few minutes ago that my colleague Florian, who is right here with me, already put this on automatically, so your microphone will be muted during the session. And unless, of course, you're the speaker or there's a question that you noted that you wanted to ask, then we will give you the opportunity to speak through the microphone. So if you do have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask them, but use the chat function that's in the Zoom underneath in your panel. If you put in your questions, we will have a look at them, and if you need the microphone, we will give it to you. Also, very important to notice is that this session will be recorded and also made available online after the session. We will blur all the faces, and we will make sure that no names will be visible during the recorded version of this session. If you do have any problems afterwards or now, just let us know, and we'll make sure that your contribution will be deleted from the recordings. All right, and I'll just walk you through the program, what we'll be doing today. After this slide, and I will tell you a little bit more about how Tygron works together with the educational institutions. And then I will give some time to look into some new features that we have in the Tygron platform, basically on GIS and Geodesign. This was one of the things that we noted when you entered your subscription to this webinar. We asked you a question, what do you want to learn? And which was answered a lot was that you want to learn a lot about using GIS and using other applications. So we made a few clips that will run you through that, and we have Godelief, my colleague, who is a GIS specialist here, that will be able to answer the questions that you have. Then I will give the word to Mendel from the University of Amsterdam. And Mendel has a course running on climate-proof cities, in which students create scenarios for climate resilient cities with the goal to use these for stakeholder dialogue. So this will be very interesting. And then we will go to Henk, who will tell us something about translating science to policy. And Henk is also very experienced with guiding students, doing his own PhD research with Tygron, so he can tell a lot about that. And then in the end, there was a last-minute contribution by Karin Wilterdink, who had some experience with going online with her curriculum and also going online with the climate game. And she has some lessons learned for you to share with us. And well, hopefully, when we end this, it will be around 3. We will have to see how it goes. Maybe it will be a little bit shorter, and then there will be a roundup. Just a short something about Tygron and our educational, and working together with educational institutions. This is one of the very important things for us to work on, because students, obviously it's important for us that students learn how to work with the Tygron platform, and also that they know for which use cases they can use the Tygron platform. But also students are a big source of knowledge and of inspiration. And they can give valuable feedback about our platform, which we use to make it better. And also they can create new use cases and new ideas to work with the Tygron platform and share these with our community. So we have been having contact with our educational organizations for quite some time, and during the last year it was quite clear that there was a lot of wish for being able to use our software free of charge, and we made this possible about a year and a half ago. And well, this was very nice to see that there was quite a big rise in use from educational organizations. I have a little sheet here that shows some of the organizations that use our software. The sheet was too small to put all of them on. And you can see there's schools in the Netherlands, but also outside the Netherlands that are using our software quite intensely. As I said, the software for educational organizations is free of charge. But what we do like is that we like to stimulate is that all the students and the teachers, they share what they do with the Tygron platform and how they do it. And we have our Tygron forum, which is a very good instrument to do this sharing. This is also quite new. I think we also have it about a year and a half, and you see it's being used more and more. I have a little clip. This is the forum that you're seeing right now. And there are all different kinds of themes that you can comment on. And there was a recent one from a student from Van Hardeveld who had a question. He actually thought there was something wrong in our software, but we could help him out yesterday that there was a problem with the settings. And obviously that is something that's very interesting for other users as well. Then there is the announcements section. So if there is a new release on the platform, or there is something interesting, you always put it on the announcements section, so you can always see what's new and interesting for you to work with. And there is also a special section for educational organizations where you can share each other and inspire about how to work with the Tygron platform. So from here, a call to please use the forum to share your experience and inspire others how to use the Tygron platform. So there are a few instruments that we use to work together with educational organizations. One was also the educational content that we released last year on the last version of this event. I thought it would be really nice to take a look at how this went. A lot of students competing. Short clip on that as well.
The Tygron Student Contest 2019 is over, and we have a winner. 210 students from 48 countries took the time and effort to participate by creating a project on the Tygron Geodesign platform based on the UN's Sustainable Development Goals. But in the end, there can only be one winner, and this year's winner is Ellie Williams. This student from New Zealand impressed the judges with a project on sustainable water management. Second place is for Lubbert van Urk with his project on sustainable industries. And third place is for Jelmer Naas, who aimed to make the city of Basel climate-proof. This concludes the Tygron Student Contest 2019. We would like to thank everyone for participating and hope to see you again next year.
So this was also very nice to do the contest, not also because there are some very good projects made by students, but also it gave us a lot of feedback about the platform and about all the tools we have, learning, our documentation, our tutorials to make them better and to make it easier for students to start up and get going with the platform when they're starting up with it. So this will probably be not the last time that we did this. Also, one of the ways that we keep contact with students is by stimulating trainees. We always have trainees at Tygron ourselves, but there are also a lot of companies that have trainees that work with the Tygron platform. This will be also something that Henk will be telling a little bit more about later on in the event. And then obviously the final instrument that I wanted to name, which we are in right now, very important, Educational event. After last year's event, we've been doing some research about well, what helps educational institutions most to get started with the Tygron platform and to improve using the Tygron platform in their curriculum. And what they keep saying is that what we really like to see is examples, inspiration of other people that are using the Tygron platform in their curriculum, and well, that's what you need to get going. So that's why the theme of this year's educational event is share and inspire, and we have some very good examples today, and we hope that this will help you to get going. Okay, well, let's start with the inspiration then. Well, but the first subject that we have today is we're going to dive into GIS and Tygron. As I noted before, this was one of the questions that were asked a lot by people registering for this session. Our CTO, Maxim, he made a few clips and they will show you in detail how to let the Tygron platform communicate with other GIS applications. And just a reminder, if you have questions, please use the chat session and put in your questions, and then we can have Q&A later on. And Godelief, our GIS specialist, is here to help answering all questions about this subject.
Hello, my name is Maxim Knepfle and I'm the CTO of Tygron. Together with the research and development team, we have been developing the Tygron platform in the past few years. In this webinar, I will show you how you can import your own geodata into the Tygron platform and then connect it using WF. FS with an external program like QGIS or ArcGIS Pro. And you can also edit your data out of QGIS and load them back into the Tygron platform. I will start the webinar by showing you how to import a Geodesign file into the program. The Tygron platform can also be used to import your own buildings into the project. For example, I have this grass field here, and I want to import some new buildings there. I can go to the Geo Import button, select Import New Geodata. I can select buildings, but I can also import them as terrains, areas, neighborhoods, all kinds of options. I select a GeoJSON file that I have for my ArcGIS application or QGIS. Here it's selected. Now it's imported as a 3857 coordinate system. And it found one feature. You can also see that on the small map. Here you see the buildings. It will be imported. You can also additionally filter them based on a specific attribute. I just want all the buildings. I also want to import them as new buildings. You can also update only existing attributes if you have some additional attributes of your own. In this case, it's just grass field, so I want to import them completely. I can give them a name based on the name attribute or on a different prefix, whatever you want. You can also import additional attributes that are in your GeoJSON file. Next thing I have to select is the function. For example, if I want to build a housing complex, I can select it, nice green rooftop. Next. Now it's finished. And it's imported to the server. And here you can see the result, my 6 new buildings. I can also export the buildings again. And I select them. You see my buildings. And when I just drag them, for example, to a text file, I can just take it and drop it in the text file. Here you see the original GeoJSON data again. So I can also edit my buildings using the Geo standard VFS. Using VFS, I can change the attributes of my newly added buildings or change their shape. To do this, I have to go to Buildings in the menu bar, select Export Geodata, and now I have a panel with different options. So I can select the VFS, for example, and I can select it on all buildings or maybe only architectural buildings or only bridges or roads. For now, I select all. And I select the VFS service. This is using copy URL. Now the URL of the VFS server is copied to my clipboard and I can open it in, for example, QGIS. So when I open QGIS next to my project, I can do layer, add VFS layer. And here I can edit in my URL. Press OK, connect. And you see all the different layers that are in this VFS service. I select all buildings again. I can also select again only the roads. Press add, and now you can see all the buildings in my project using VFS. So here are the 6 buildings that I just entered. I can click on them. And I can get more information. I can see the different attributes. But I can also edit the attributes using this button. I can go, for example, to the roof color, and now it's the default color that's green in this example. I can also change it to have a red colored roof. So I change it to the RGB code. Red, select OK, and now save it. You see that's updated in the Tygron project immediately. I can also do more. For example, I can also edit the contour of the building. So when I want to extend this building with a nice extension, I can just edit it here. And when I press save again, you see that's also extended very largely in the Tygron software. So in the previous part, you saw that I added some new buildings in my project using VFS. I've reverted the changes again and back to the original buildings. And we can now also look at the impact of these new houses, for example, on the water flow in the area. So when I go to overlays and I select the rainfall overlay, I can see where the water is flowing when there's a lot of rain showers in the area. See that this specific house really has a problem because there's a lot of water directly in front of it. So these overlays, you can see them in the Tygron project, but you can also see them again in QGIS. I will demonstrate it now. You go to the rainfall overlay and you select export grid data. And here you get a new panel with what you want to export. You can export it as GeoTIFF and then again import it into QGIS. You can also download all the frames in one action, but there's also a new option available, and that's using the web map service. Again, you select copy URL. Now it's copied to my clipboard, and I can open it in QGIS. So here I have my project again with the buildings in QGIS, and I can do layer, add VMS layer. And here I select edit, enter the URL, okay. And I'm connecting, you see the different overlays in my project. And I select the overlays and then go to the rainfall overlay. And also select the last time frame. And when I add it to my project, you can see the rainfall overlay in QGIS. You can see that this specific building really has a problem because if you walk outside the door here, then you're wet. You can also click on it. You can get more information about that specific area. So for example, the amount of water that's there, it's 20 centimeters. It's quite a lot. Now the next interesting thing is that I can also make some changes to this building. So for example, I can put it on a hilltop. When I go back to the Tygron engine, I can go to terrain and now select the wrong one and do change elevation model. And here I have some new different options, and I can make a selection based on the blueprint. For example, from an area that I made before. So when I put, what I will do next is that I will put some height around the building so it's protected against the water. And you can set all these things down here. You can set, for example, the angle. So if you want a little slope to protect the building, or if you want it straight up, and you can select the height of how the change in the land height. You can do an absolute value, set it to a specific value, or you can do it relative to the existing height map. So what I will do is that I will give it a 45% angle and make it 10 meters higher than the original. Then I select apply changes, and now you can see that the building is standing on top of a small hill. I go back to overlays, to the rainfall overlay, and I select update. And it needs to calculate a bit, and it will calculate a new situation with my house standing on the hilltop. It's finished in a few seconds. Yes, now you can see that the water is flowing around it and not into my house. Again, I can also show this in QGIS. You just have to select refresh. And you see that the water is nicely flowing around the building instead of right through it. And I can also show this data, for example, in the Aeres environment. That can be done via the web interface and show it in ArcGIS viewer. And here you see my area again. I can select the last time frame. You see the water in the Aeres environment. Okay, thank you for watching this webinar. I hope you have enjoyed it. I would suggest playing around with these features because then you will understand them even better. I hope to see you next year. Goodbye.
Great. These were some really good examples of how the Tygron platform communicates with other GIS applications, such as the Esri applications or QGIS, and those are probably applications that your students are used to work with quite well, which also makes the platform easier accessible. We had some good questions coming in. Great. Before I start answering them, I forgot to note that we might not be able to answer all your questions here online due to time, but we will answer them later. So if you don't get your answer right now, we will make sure you get them when you take up some clips and Q&As, and we'll make sure that we do get the answers. One of the questions I saw coming in was from Dave, and if I understood the question correctly, his question was, what if I make a change in, for instance, QGIS, one of the GIS applications? Does the Tygron platform recalculate immediately the impact of this change? And well, this is a very good question, and maybe I can ask Gaulief, my colleague, to answer this question.
Yes, as Maxim showed in his example with the rainfall overlay and placing the building on a hill, you saw that overlay calculated these results immediately. So you can make changes in QGIS, for example, and then the results will be calculated in your project.
Okay, so this is really a real-time connection between the two applications, right?
Yeah.
One change will affect the other and the other way around. Thank you. Another question that I saw was about performance. It has a question, how long does it usually take to calculate real-time calculation? Is it about 15 seconds typically, or does it depend on the size of the calculation that has to be performed?
That depends on a number of things. For example, the size of your project. So if you have a very large project, it takes a bit longer to calculate. And for example, the rainfall overlay and the heat stress overlay, these are calculated as grid overlays. So in each grid cell, the heat stress, for example, is calculated, and the size of these grids that also influences the calculation time.
The answer is it does influence. Thank you, Holly. Another nice one. Can I make story maps using the Tygron platform?
You can also make story maps. You can also copy the WMS URL from the Tygron platform, and you can use that URL in your story map.
That may be the story map option. Is that maybe something that you're able to show us, Holly, by sharing your screen?
I'm not sure. I can show you how to copy the URL.
Great.
Oh, I cannot share my screen.
Ask my colleague here if he can help you in some settings. He's finding that out. Maybe we can check out if you have another question in the meantime. And if this works, sharing your screen, that we can come back to it later. Another nice one. Can I also load in BIM models?
Yes, you can also load in BIM models. You have to use ArcGIS Pro, and you have to create an SLPK file in ArcGIS Pro, and then you can import it in the platform.
Thank you very much. Just running through the through the chat question at some time. I covered most of the questions. If I really miss an important one, please type it again. But I think I covered most of the question. I think one other question is: does the real-time integration? Oh yeah, this is a good one. Is there a way you were telling us about these SLPK not files, SLPK files, which you can use to import BIM models. And of course, you can also import models with that look really good and have really nice textures. And the question that I got here is there a way to create these SLPK files without using ArcGIS Pro?
Well, the SLPK that is a standard which is it originates from Esri. So you can use ArcGIS Pro to create SLPK file. I don't know if any other programs can create SLPK files.
Okay, so this is something that we are going to, maybe a nice one to find out later, and we will inform you about that later.
Yeah.
I'm going to try one thing to see if I can get Golief to share her screen. So sorry about the inconvenience, but I'm going to try to make you a co-host, Golief.
Okay.
And this might give you some more rights. Are you able to share your screen now?
Yes. Great. I think you're seeing my screen now.
Yeah, there's always a little bit of time. Yeah, there we go. We see it.
Okay. So I have a project here of Utrecht, and to show the WMS URL to use in a story map, you can go to Tools and then Web Interface. And here you see Show Generic WMS URL. And if you then copy this URL and use in your story map, you can see all the overlays. So the WMS URL is for all the overlays, for all the maps, and the WFS URL is for all the vector data.
Okay, great. And maybe if we're demoing now anyway, we got some questions about the BIM models and the SLPK files. Can you maybe show us a little bit how that works, importing an SL? SLPK file into the platform?
So I have here ArcGIS Pro, and you see here a SketchUp file I downloaded. So this is a SketchUp file of a church in Utrecht, and you can create the SLPK file in ArcGIS Pro. You have to use a few tools. We have this manual on our wiki, and there you see all the steps how to create the SLPK. So this is what the SLPK file looks like. And you can import this building into your project. So if I go back to the project and I go to the geodata wizard, I click on buildings because we have a building. And then you see here the option SLPK file. So this is the SLPK file I created. Here you see the church. I just click next on these steps. This step is important. This step says something about which function the building is. It's a church, so I choose for religious building. And then we are finished with the wizard. Takes some time. Now we will see the building here. Oh, there it is. So this is the church I've downloaded as a SketchUp file, and then I created an SLPK file. Now we have the church here. You can see all the textures and every detail of the building.
Great, Goli, that's a really nice example of importing the BIM files. Maybe before we round up this subject, to get back to the question Joseph asks about how to create SLPK without ArcGIS. And Goli said, I'm not sure. Well, what we think is it's probably possible, because what we do in Tygron is that we work with open standards as much as we can. So we try not to be dependent on only one application or a way to work. So because we work with open standards, we suspect that it's possible, but we will find it out for you and we'll get back to you later on this. Also on your question on whether it's possible for earlier versions. Oli, thank you so much. I think I've covered all the questions right now. I'm going to look at my colleague next to me. Okay, great. Share my screen again. There, Maxim is again. All right, thanks you all. Then I'm going to give the word to Mendel from the University of Amsterdam. As I was saying before, Mendel is using Tygron in his course for students on climate-proof cities, and he can tell us a little bit about how he does this, and some experience of himself and the students. Mendel.
Yes. Let me try to share screen. I think this. That works? You can see the screen?
Yeah, very good.
So this is, of course, strategic planning for climate-proof cities. It's in the Master of Urban and Regional Planning at the University of Amsterdam. And last year, I only used the climate game. And so this year I thought I'll try and integrate a bit more the Tygron engine in the course. We have quite a broad key learning objectives, as we use the significant learning theory from L.D. Fink. But as you see, we have quite a lot of objectives that don't specifically have to do with planning software or GIS software. And so it's really a content-driven course about strategic planning in climate-proof cities. And we try to see if we can add this, the Tygron software to it. And so we use this framework in general for their group project to work on a climate-proof plan, start with the exploration and analysis of understanding the problem, then try to create a vision, and then work from that vision in a backcasting exercise towards a final plan with an elaboration on it. And the idea was that within each group, everybody would take a different stakeholder, and so that they would create actually different, how would you say it, different optimal plans from the perspective of that stakeholder between the exploration phase and the visioning phase, and that they would bring it together in Tygron and discuss it and present it, and then create a general plan from stakeholder negotiation. So this was our weekly planning, first introduction, and in the red you see the Tygron tutorials. So we had an intro to the software, we discussed maps and indicators, then we worked more to directions of how to put in interventions and actions. Then we had a co-creation session, and the idea was then have a presentation. And let me see if I can also, Hera, who I think is in this session as well, which is a student of our research master, and he prepared this kind of manual we used also to explain how Tygron worked, how it works when you have overlays and indicators, when you have intervention actions, and what to do then. So that was actually a good start and a good way of organizing it. So what went well, and students were able to gather data for their analysis from the engine. So they had, so they were able to do the overlays of the rainfall overlay and these kinds of aspects and understand what was the problem. So they could substantiate their analysis and their first ideas of what are actually the problems in those areas they were assigned to do. And some students were able to support the plan also with calculations by the Tygron engines. But in the end, there were only a few of the students that were able to achieve this within the software. So students saw a potential use and saw the relevance for their future career. And also the tutorials on the website helped quite a lot for students to understand, okay, but what am I actually supposed to do? But there were actually quite a lot of difficulties as well. As the first was more of the technical side. So many of the students were actually unable to get the software going due to graphical driver issues, working on a Mac. But we also had the same problem with our GIS lab, which also led to problems of having an alternative for students to go to if their own computers don't work. So that was quite a difficulty. So it's also quite important to really check beforehand that in ieder geval your backup of the GIS lab works actually with the Tygron engine. And we also found that students, because we have a very social science master program, that for many of the students, the designing the interventions to change the attributes and these aspects was really a step too far. Even with the tutorials online, they still found it quite difficult and challenging. And also challenging when things didn't work on how to actually then to get it to work. So that was quite difficult. And for me, of course, it's also difficult to help them because I'm also not a technical expert in the Tygron engine myself. So that was a difficulty. And finally, it was difficult also to combine with the content-driven social science course, because we had certain subjects and we tried to align the subjects with the interventions and the technical aspects. But still, we found we needed either more time for the content or more time for the explanation of how to use the software and how to go through it. And so in this 6 ECTS course, to combine content-driven social science with also learning new software is, proved a bit challenging, to say at least. So things going forward, we're thinking of maybe whether we should have it as an integral part of the course, or that maybe it would be better if we move it more to the direction of the GIS courses we also teach, because those are courses that are focused on the technical aspects of using software and how to work with that. So that's a discussion that's ongoing, but also because next year it will remain the same, but the year after, the methodology and GIS courses will move before this climate-proof cities course. So that might help the integration, because then it will be better placed in the curriculum. So before we started or ended with the climate game, and that works quite well. And that would at least show the students also that there is the option to continue with the Tygron engine and to use it in their thesis and these aspects when they have more time or when they're more technically interested, because we also have quite a lot of students that are less technically able or technically interested in using software. And I was thinking, as maybe more and more teachers use Tygron, we could also consider creating a MOOC or like an online session as you have with ArcGIS, so that you can actually refer to students taking that thing online instead of doing it in your lectures. And then in your lectures, you can really focus more on applying it to the content. And I think as more and more people teachers start incorporating Tygron, that it might be actually a quite efficient way of organizing, that students have the technical capacities to work with the Tygron engine before they start applying it to the content. So that was a bit my sharing my experience of last year. And I'll try to stop the sharing, maybe.
Great, Mendel. Thank you very much.
Yes.
I'm really impressed by what you did and how you integrated it with your courses.
Yeah.
Something nice to let you know before we start with questions is thank you for your suggestion on the MOOC. Do I pronounce that well?
I think so. Yeah.
In online learning environment, this is something that we are working on right now. It's a rather big project, so it will be something we're working on the next months. But this is something that we really want to get going, especially the online learning environment, to help students get working better and better. Maybe it's nice because I have some questions coming in from Marine and from Ilse, who we know well, of course. Ilse and I have been working together also the last days, and I recognize some of the difficulties that you have that she's also having. So maybe it's nice if we put their microphones on. They're already on, Ilse, and maybe Mendel to start with. You had some questions for, no, sorry, maybe Marine to start with. You had some questions for Mendel. Marine still there?
Yeah.
You had a question on Mendel about the time the students had and maybe a little bit more. Maybe you can repeat your question.
Okay.
You have to unmute Marine, sorry. For some reason you got back on your...
Now it's working, I think.
Yeah, now we hear you. Yeah, now we hear you.
So, Mendel, thank you very much for your nice explanation. I have the question, how much time did the students have to do this?
Yeah, so the courses, there are 2 courses parallel. So officially about 20 hours a week. And we had 1 more content-driven lecture and 1 tutorial in the week. So it may perhaps is a bit too limited to learn new software at the same time.
Yeah. Now, my experience is that you need always a more general setup before you can let them do their own project like that. And it helps also if you have a group of students with one with a little bit more technical feeling and technical expertise, because I see quite often that with only social science students, it is really difficult. So you need a kind of more connection between the different backgrounds of students to do this type of work. But it's a nice example. And I think as Haas University, we are also thinking a little bit more in this direction.
Yeah, it's quite a challenge, but it's also because our program has a broad diversity of students with different backgrounds. So some students indeed will have a whole GIS bachelor background, and others will come from environmental sciences or will come from sociology. And that makes it indeed challenging, and also to find out who actually has the background knowledge already and who doesn't, and to get them organized in different groups. But it's also something I was thinking about to beforehand understand who has this technical background, and then try to put at least 1 person in each group of this. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Ilse, are you there?
Yeah, so I'm Ilse. I'm from Avans University of Applied Sciences. And well, I deal with students who are actually very multidisciplinary because we do environmental sciences. And we've been using the climate game in the previous years to have them explore the different, what it's like to be a different stakeholder, so to say. This year, because of Corona, they could not sit together, so I had them do different demos, different tutorials using the website of Tygron, and doing it by themselves, and that was quite challenging. I still get questions, so I can I also noticed that the students rely very heavily on us as teachers. And of course, we're not complete ICT help desk kind of people. So I'm also like, I don't know. So I'm also, because my students have done a lot of GIS in year 1 and year 2. And the whole project where they deal with climate resilient cities. So it's very similar to what Mendel is mentioning at the moment. So they should be able to do this, but it's like as if they're scared of a new model or a new, it's more like a simulation program, and they're like, oh, I don't recognize this, you know, and then they are, and I can't download it on my MacBook too good, or I have a firewall, so I can't do this. Do you have another assignment for me? And go like, no, I just made this assignment for you because you can't do the climate game. So do the tutorials. There's like a whole help desk behind this. You have all these websites that you can use. I refer them to that. I just already put the web links there, and still they're like, it's like as if they're like scared of doing this. So my question to Mendel is also, so how did you actually in the end fulfill your, so how did you make them meet your learning goals?
Yeah, so in the end I had to change one of the learning goals, but I had to change the the setup, because some people or some groups were just not able to use Tygron for their analysis. So I changed the assessment structure. So in my assessment of them, I didn't say you have to incorporate the Tygron engine analysis, for instance. But then they would have to go look for other geodata
sources
and use the end sources.
Mm-hmm.
But I couldn't make it mandatory for them to use Tygron in the end. So I had to adapt that a bit.
Yeah.
But of course, a lot of learning goals were also related to more content-specific aspects.
Yes, yeah, of course. For us, it's also one of the tools that they're using, but I also do think that it gives them good insight how different stakeholders deal with something about climate resilience in this case. So for me, I now had them do, because I just couldn't make groups of 4 or 6 sitting behind their computers doing the climate game because I couldn't watch them. So I had them take different demos that together add up to something that has got something to do with climate change, like rainfall, water in general, just to get the whole Tygron engine, how that actually works, because it's fairly simple. And then do the heat stress demo as last. And then, of course, asking them questions separately in a Word document, so nice and old-fashioned, something they recognize. And then I just asked them questions. So how does heat stress, how does that relate to climate change in the city, or becoming more resilient? Or questions like, so what's a heat island or an urban heat island, those kind of things. So they can also look it up on the website, and sometimes I also ask them, so combined with all the information that you already have from the project, what would you suggest good options are to decrease the heat stress in the city? Because now you can only plant trees, but there are no fountains, there are no water, those kind of things. Mm-hmm. So how eventually did you make them go through the game so that they could understand that?
Yeah, for me, the questions you asked were things that they don't need the Tygron engine to answer, of course. So we also had the literature we were working through, and the lectures. So they know they have a lecture on bioclimatic design and what kind of design elements are most effective against urban heat island effects. So they wouldn't need to use the Tygron engine for that. So the real idea was that they used the Tygron engine to do their analysis and to develop their ideas and present their ideas to other people.
I have some tips coming in here from Marine. Maybe Marine, you can get back online and share you had some tips for Ilse also to get students involved.
Yeah, I understand, Ilse, your problems, because it's always if it's something new, students are always, they are not always willing to do this easily. But it helps always if you start with a moment that you really check if they can use the Tygron platform. So at that moment, if you then have also a technical person available next to your general introduction on the lecture, it will help a lot. It's also very important to make it very clear what is the emphasis of it. Is Tygron engine just a tool in itself that helps you to bring the general objective, or is it really an important aspect because you like to show what is possible with these type of tools? And yeah, I think in a way you see with e-learning in general that we do not need only good lecturers, we also need people that can be well versed in using this technology. And I think in a way, even if you can explain the relationship between GIS data and models, and that you are in a whole process of changing data into information to make certain decisions in a policy environment, it comes a little bit clearer what they are doing, because quite often they don't oversee what they are doing.
Yeah, thank you very much. I note that it's quite challenging for teachers to combine all these skills to get students and reach your learning goals. I was thinking, Mendel, you already said a bit that the tutorials helped, but that in your vision, Tygron could go a little bit further ahead by working on a MOOC or online learning environment. Do you have some more tips and suggestions for Tygron how we can help you with this challenge? Maybe not only Mendel, but also Ilse and Marien.
I think maybe because I mean, I think it's important for you not to become a help desk for all kinds of students during all kinds of courses. So this MOOC or online learning environment would prevent that from happening, probably.
And what do you think of the forum? But because I feel with what you're saying, obviously, that it will be very time-consuming to be a help desk for all students. But you set up the forum also a little bit up with the idea that it can be a community also for students, so that they can help each other, maybe with questions. Is that something that you see working, or do you have some ideas how we can get that a little bit more living, that students can also help each other?
Yeah, so I try to force them and say, okay, if you have a question, first go to the forum, ask the question. But in the end, I don't think a lot of students actually ask the question on the forum.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a shame issue or, yeah. I don't know why they want to, because every time say, okay, this is a good question, also ask it on the forum so that other people also can use the answer to the question. But yeah, I don't know where the resistance with students is to do this actually. But I mean, in principle, it's a good idea, because if I need to do an analysis in R or another statistical software, I also just Google my question that I want to do, and then somebody provides the answer already on the forum on how to do it.
Or YouTube or whatever.
Yeah.
Mendel, I think the problem is partly that students also think that they are assessed on what they asked on there, because they have the feeling that they should know themselves. And if you show them also that in real life, when they are working, when they are employed, this is the normal way of doing it, then it becomes more integrated like that. And I think if you show that you are doing the same, quite probably that will help you. I always tell my students, I do not know everything. I only know where I can find some of the answers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think, yeah, that's a good suggestion to always show that. Yeah, that especially in these kinds of situations, it's very good to ask for help and to look online and to ask questions, and other people can help you. That's actually the nice part of these forums.
And luckily, we do not have to know everything, because we can also search for it, or we can ask it sometimes. And that approach, that method should be incorporated more in the nowadays educational environment, because it's also how people work in reality.
Yeah, exactly.
If you are living on an island, then you will have really a problem.
Very good one, Marien. That's a really good one.
On an island,
also,
all you have with you is your Tygron engine.
I think also, because the only thing I know more of Tygron is actually, yes, very limited what I know more of Tygron than the students do. Of course, I just also follow the tutorials, and then I maybe understand a bit quicker where to change things or something. But of course, I'm also not an expert. And so I think that would also help if this online system would have more experts that also teach and know better how to teach software, because I'm actually more of a policy analysis and these kinds of aspects more than I am a teacher of technical software, for instance. So that might also help because, yeah, I'm now their lecturer, but I don't know that much more than they do after they're watching.
But in a way, that sometimes is not a problem because I see if you really calculate, they can quite often spend more time on the software than we can do.
Yeah, for sure.
The easiest way is to also to show that it's not necessary to know everything about software, but combine it with kind of objectives you would like to do. And sometimes I tell students also it's not really the outcome that's important as the process that you are doing like that. And secondly, I'm very happy that Tygron is making such a community, but in a way, yeah, I'm a little bit older nowadays, and I remember in the 90s that I had still half a day without really doing something. I could spend some time on that. Now, to be to organize and help also other institutes, other educational institutes, you need a kind of business model for that, and that's difficult. So, in a way, I think we should have more situations that we define the best practices of each other and that we can learn from that. And in a way, we are doing that now also.
Yeah, thank you
Yes.
very much. I have some more suggestions coming in. One of them is close to what Marine was saying, that students are actually quite fast in learning software and maybe even can learn it even better than the teachers. Henk just gave the suggestion, what about assigning student as an assistant to help? Did you ever think of that?
Yeah, but we don't have students that are experts either in a Tygron, of course. So that would be very useful if there was a research student. And of course, Hera helped with the making of the PowerPoint and the explanations a bit more. Yeah, and we know that our student assistants and our junior lecturers are really stressed for time currently. So it's also difficult to tell them to learn a new software and help with that.
Yeah. Okay, maybe we can go back to this a little later when Henk is having his.
Yeah, or maybe would be we could try to do more of an exchange, because I know some of you lecturers, of course, have a GIS program more or less, and students that are very capable in using these types of software, and trying to see if someone wants to help with the courses at other places.
Would that be something that the other ones attending would be interested in, to maybe look at that's a possibility? To work on some kind of exchange? You can also add it on your chat. I think it's a really nice one, Mendel, to work on after this event. If we can help each other a little bit by exchanging knowledge and maybe students to help. Yeah. I had one question coming in. One last question, maybe before we switch to the next subject. Also, time-wise, one more question for Marie. I was wondering, do your students have like an external assignment, or do you work for companies, for instance, on your courses, or how does that work?
Yeah, we do. We had, I think, 1.5 years, 2 years ago, also with the province of Gelderland, where we used also Tygron for that. This year, I do not have an example like that, but we would like to do it, and always tell people at Tygron. So please, if you have a client that would like to do a next step, can you use perhaps student of us for that also? So as a kind of mixture of Tygron, the client and students like that, and that can be very helpful for that.
It's a really good one, Marine. We'll look at that, because also it makes the assignments more concrete, and it helps.
Exactly. So in a way, I think you can use students easily like that. Sorry, I have to go for a moment.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Marie. Maybe last thing for Mendel before we switch to the next subject. Do you have experience with this, Mendel, with working with external assignments or companies together on your curriculum?
Yeah, for us it's quite limited. We're trying to change this a bit for the coming year, because for us we don't even have an internship possibility because people, the program is so full with the content courses. So trying to create space in a thesis to work also more on an internship thesis basis. In climate-proof cities, we're working on 3 cases in the municipality of Amsterdam, but they only asked, I only asked them for what would be good locations, more or less, and they were interested in the outcomes. So we shared the outcomes with the engineering department. So it happens in courses, but not that much for us.
Okay, thank you. Well, maybe to wrap up this subject, thanks again, Mendel. I'm very impressed by how you work in your curriculum, and I hope next year maybe it will be a little bit more easy, and we will still be working on trying to help you to get the students going. So I've written down quite a lot of challenges based on this discussion. For instance, working on this learning environment on a way that it stays up to date all the time, which is also a challenge. Seeing if we can help by contacting clients, maybe with students, or exchanging students and knowledge. So getting the community, basically getting the community more running and more active. So we have quite some challenges, but these are really nice things that we like to work on. So we'll definitely come back to that. So thank you very much, Mendel. And I will switch to the next subject. And I have to share my screen. Which I've lost. Just a second. My Zoom skills are still still needing a little bit of work. There we are. And then we go back to Henk. The screen is shared. Now I have to get to the right slide. Well, this is just going to take me 1 second to get this running. For some reason, okay, maybe we can switch options because this is quite annoying. Yeah. I think I'm in. Hey. There we go. Usually patience is a very good solver for these kind of issues. Henk, are you online or? See if we can get your phone. Yeah, I'm quite sure that I will get this video running in a while, but it seems to be well, resisting for some kind of reason. Maybe before we start the video, Henk, you can tell me a little bit about your experience with working with different kind of interns and students. It's also connecting a little bit to the subject that we were talking about just now. So maybe you can share your experience with that a little bit with us.
Well, sure. I would. I've had several interns over the last few years, and what I noticed is actually similar to what Mendel told us, that they take a little time to learn the software. Takes about 1 or 2 months, depending on how fast they are. But after that, they become skilled very quickly. So the most interesting internships, well, preferably last for at least 6 months, so they can learn the software and then have enough time to, do something great with it. For instance, design an indicator or do some research with software, which we ourselves don't have enough time for. So it's nice. Actually, if a student approaches us and says, "Hey, I've heard you are working with Tygron, can I do an internship?" I say yes first, and then start asking what they exactly would want to do.
Your advice is to always grab all the opportunities to.
Yeah, well, that might change in the near future. There are a lot of more students who are willing to work with it, but well, I've had maybe 5 students over the last 4 years, and I'm pleased with all 5 of them.
Great, that's good to hear. I'm just gonna try one more time to get this video running because it's way too nice to get it going. Yeah, there you are.
Hello, my name is Henk van Hardeveld. I work at Waternet, one of the water authorities in the Netherlands, located in Amsterdam. And today I will be discussing with you the challenge of translating science to policy using the Tygron Geodesign platform. Now, I've been working with Tygron since 2014. So before I discuss the current situation at Waternet, I would really like to wind the clock back a few years to 2014 and explain why I started working with Tygron in the first place and also why I never stopped doing so. In 2014, I was doing a PhD research at Utrecht University. I was facing the challenge of designing a science policy interface for the collaborative management of social-ecological systems. The research started with the predicament that many decision support systems were not used. They were either too slow or too complicated, or they did not meet the demands of users because their scope was too narrow. And in response to this, a new wave has emerged of interactive, faster decision support systems, which made us wonder, what might the added value be of these systems? We set out to explore this using the case of the collaborative management of Dutch peatlands. Now you might have guessed we needed a little bit of help doing this. Fortunately, we met a bunch of people who were really enthusiastic about our endeavor. They said, "We've got just the thing for you. Our software is fast, it's interactive, it addresses a broad range of topics. Just tell us what you want." So we showed them our models. Back then, there were a complicated set of interrelated GIS-based impact assessment models. The results were credible, they were legitimate, they were salient. But nevertheless, something was missing. They were not really suited to support a discussion with stakeholders. So we asked Tygron what they could do about it. They said, "We'll make a template for you, which you can use on our Geodesign platform. We'll call it Repeat." Some of you might have heard of it. It's a template that is still available for Tygron users. For those of you that are not familiar with it, this is what it looks like. It's a 3D simulation world that is constructed of real-world data. You You can interact with it and explore all the what-if scenarios you can think of. On the left-hand side, there is a ribbon, which allows you to implement measures. For instance, what you see here, the application of pressurized drains, which can slow down soil subsidence. And then, at the top of your screen, you can access all kinds of information panels, which allows you to compare the simulation results with or without measures. For instance, what you see here, impact on water quality in the ditches. Having done this, the next step was to test it in workshops and see how the participants would use the software. So we organized 10 workshops with real-world stakeholders, and this is what we witnessed. What you see here is a typical workshop setting, with groups of stakeholders looking at their laptops, analyzing what is happening in the simulation. But that is not all they are doing. They also interact with each other, see if they can broker deals, looking for mutual gains. Now the interesting thing is that this is a combination of behavior that we witnessed all the time, in every workshop. Here's a clip from another workshop, with a slightly different setting. Now although the setting is slightly different, the combination of behavior is exactly the same. You see people looking at the screen, analyzing information, and also interacting with other stakeholder groups to see if they can broker a deal. The lesson that we learned from all this is that interactive simulation can be of great added value for decision support. It can increase cooperation among stakeholders, and it can also increase their understanding of the social-ecological system. We also found out that the results depend on the way the tool is used. If your aim is to increase understanding, choose a hands-on approach instead of a guided one. If your aim is to increase cooperation, stimulate deliberation, prevent individualistic attitudes. Having learned those lessons, my professor shook my hand and said my research was finished. It was time to go out and do some good in the real world.
This brings me to the final part of my presentation. The real challenge, of course, is to implement the lessons learned in the water management practice at waternet. And I believe you can help me with that.
First, we are increasingly using the software in peatlands. Although Repeat was especially designed to facilitate policy processes in peatlands, we are nevertheless still looking for additional knowledge that we can incorporate so that we can better facilitate a dialogue with farmers and other stakeholders. If you have any ideas on those topics, please contact me, because we have lots of opportunities to implement your ideas in real-world policy processes. The second topic for which we might use the software is climate adaptation in urban areas. We experiment a lot with measures that can help a city cope with heavy rain showers and also with heat stress or prolonged periods of drought. Currently, we are not using the Tygron software for this, but we believe it might be a powerful tool to make people more aware of what they can do to contribute to a more resilient city. Once again, if you have any ideas, don't hesitate to contact me. The third and final topic I would like to draw attention to is related to the times in which we live. I'm talking about big data and the information that becomes available through monitoring by drones or in situ probes, and the artificial intelligence that is needed to process and analyze these data, and the new possibilities this presents for computer-aided support of water management tasks. We are very anxious to explore these possibilities, and we believe the Tygron software is very well suited to support that endeavor. But we are still standing on square one, thinking about where to start. So if you want to embark on this journey with us,
yes, you guessed right. Contact me. Maybe that was the most important thing I had to say. So, thank you very much for watching my presentation. And who knows, maybe we'll meet again someday and do some great work translating science to policy with the Tygron Geodesign platform.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Henk. That's great. You posed a very clear challenge and question to the people that are in this session right now, if they have ideas to contribute to the topics that you named in the presentation. I was wondering if are there people online that feel tempted to contact Henk, or do you already have ideas how to help, or courses that might contribute? You can maybe use your chat function, and also we can give you the microphone if so. Give them a little time. But Henk, it's really nice to have you here, being on both sides of several sides of working with the Tygron platform as a PhD student yourself, but also as in helping and guiding students, and also transferring the knowledge to policy making. Do you already have some tips maybe, or challenges or lessons also for Tygron, how to help students or educational organizations better to work with the software?
Well, I think an hour ago I would have said no. I'm thinking about that, but I wouldn't really know where to start. But then I watched Mendel's presentation, and he mentioned an exchange program.
Right.
And I thought, well, maybe that would be nice, because that's why I posted a comment about my student Max, who's with us today. And the same applies for other students I had. When they have done an internship, I see that they are very well equipped to transfer their knowledge to fellow users, fellow students, or fellow colleagues. In fact, a few months ago, some new colleagues started at waternet. They're all learning the Tygron software, and Max was a great help, just showing them around, even though he started working with the software himself only a few months prior to that. So, well, I think I really believe that a key to well, getting the whole community to work with the software on a higher level is to engage those students or even colleagues at municipalities or water authorities. Engage those people who are very skilled and see if we can do something in collaboration. I would be very willing to discuss that possibility and work something out.
Yeah, great. Yeah, we're also really good to get this community and exchange going. Do you already maybe have, Henk, student assignments in your head, or do you know that other water institutions have student assignments?
Yeah, but that changes on a weekly basis, and the list is really endlessly. Basically, there are two things you can do. Is you can add additional knowledge to the software, design an indicator, do some research, and tune it to the needs of a special stakeholder group. And the second thing you can do is help apply it in real world processes. And especially that part, I believe the software is very well equipped to support, to do. And we have very limited experience on that. So I think we can all use a little bit of help.
Great, because I hear you saying that there's options for both more technically oriented students, but also for more policy oriented, interaction oriented students. Yeah, there are lots of options.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have another question coming in, sorry. Oh, there's a question, how easily is the water module accessible for you and for students? Is this something special, or is it something that's accessible for everyone?
Wow. Well, I believe Max van Hardeveld is with us today. Maybe you should ask the question to him. But when he started his internship, I said, well, hello, Max. Here's the water module of Tygron. Just figure it out. Let me know if you have some questions.
Trying to give Max the microphone. Max, are you there?
Hi, yes, I am there. Yes, so I started my internship in November with Henk. And I started first with building an indicator, and then I dropped into the water module. And for me, it was actually very self-explanatory, as I just followed like the wizards quite often. And like the biggest issue for me was like preparing the data itself. Like I'm quite good in GIS, so I collected the data first, and then it was actually very like tweaking little things on like finding out how to run a year simulation. What isn't possible yet, but then I discovered like several things that you can like, for instance, download time frames, and like for instance, if you run it for a month, download the last day of a month and use those values as your starting values for your next month. You can actually have a year simulation in your model, like that kind of stuff. But like, I would rather hear like more specific questions about the water module, because I thought it was really accessible with the use of the forum. I use it quite often, and I looked at what did other people do, and I quite often interacted with Hansje as well. So yeah.
You're not to hesitate to ask questions in the forum.
Oh, it's very available, and it's very easy accessible as well. It's just like an overlay, like your rainfall overlay, but then slightly more enhanced with more parameters.
I hear Quinn was asking the question if the water module is available. Yes, it is available. The water module is an integral part of the Tygron software. Tygron Educational license gives access to the all functionalities of the Tygron platform, including the water module. Thank you, Max. Max, did you also work with the heat calculations? Because there's a question about that as well.
I'm actually looking at it now, as I'm going back to waternet to do my internship later this year. Yeah. But I didn't work with the heat module yet. But, it's a grid-based model as well, like the water module. So
we implemented the new heat calculations last year based on the on the Dutch national standards for stress testing, and this heat module is also available for all Tygron users now since last February. And maybe Henk, did you have experience, because the question was directed to you, Henk, do you have experience with the heat calculations, and how are you experienced with the usability of the outcomes?
No, actually, we're at the same stage that Max is. Some colleagues of mine are applying the heat module for the first time now, so I'm not really familiar with it yet.
What I could do, if I think question to construction, I could set you up with this would contribute to getting the community going. I could set you up with some Tygron users that are very familiar with the heat module, and they can tell you a little bit about how it's used. So I will get back to you later on that, and I will set you up with. Oh yeah, and also good suggestion here. We have several demo projects available in our software. These are the demo projects that Ilse also was using. She told about this earlier, and there is one demo project that is about the heat module, and it's also directly connected to the documentation. So if you want to start practicing with both the heat module, but also the water module, Kim was asking about that, then you can use the demo project. And I'll make sure that you guys get the links to that also after this session, so that it's really nice to get going with the more specialized modules of the Tygron platform. Florian is already working on on telling you how to work with the demo project. I'm just wondering, are there any more questions for Henk? Otherwise, I would just like to say, please don't hesitate to, if you have students or questions that can contribute to Henk or waternet, just contact him. The details are still in the are still there. How to find Henk in the screen. So don't hesitate to contact Henk or us at Tygron. We can also help you set you up with Henk or with other Tygron users. Okay, Henk and also Max, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Let's see if the PowerPoint is willing to work a little bit again, because we're switching to Karin right now. I'm just going to check if Karin is online and if we can hear her. Karin. I'll make you a co-host as well, Karin, because that makes it easier. Karin, are you here?
Yes.
Ah, there you are.
I am unmuted.
Yeah.
Hi.
We've been talking. I'm trying to get the video started. You had at all of the participants here. You've been facing the challenge to change the whole of your curriculum to online activities.
Yes.
You had about 2 days preparing to get this done, and well, you had some experience and some lessons learned to share with us. I'm going to try one more time to see if I can get video about this running that we prepared. And if we can't get it running,
we'll just redo the interview.
because we had a lot of practice, so, so I'm quite sure that well. Great, you could join us. Maybe you can start a little bit. On my screen again. See if this is working. Great, you could join us. Maybe you can start a little bit by telling with where you work and who you are.
Yes. Hi everybody, I'm Karin Wilterdink. I work at Aeres Hogeschool Almere as a teacher for the bachelor program Geo, Media and Design.
And how long have you been working with Tygron?
I've been working for Tygron from the time we started with our program. It's about 5 years ago that we had the first year student. And in all the years we use Tygron. Our first year students work with climate game and repeat. They play those games or do the simulations. In our second year, I have my students make small projects of their own. And the past couple of years, the third year students have done projects for the water board, Rijnlanden, where they perform projects for them with the Tygron software.
Great. And you're still working with the climate game also. Maybe you can tell a little bit for which course this is and with which purpose?
Yeah, my students are in their first year. They're on a course called Climate and Environmental Issues in the Netherlands in the present. And in this course, I also teach about climate adaptation in cities. And I always do climate game to add to that learning.
And there were some recent developments that made you go online with the course in, well, you got 2 days preparation or something. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about how that
Yes, that's right. So I had my regular climate game session planned for Monday the 16th. And Thursday night before is the time when all the universities and University of Sciences in the Netherlands decided not to teach any courses in school for the upcoming weeks. So we had to completely switch around our teaching to distance learning. But I had this climate session planned, and I figured, well, it's gaming. It's something you do online, why not? Why not try to do it from a distance? Because, well, people are gaming online all over the world together all the time. They play Fortnite, they play Minecraft, they play Roblox. That's what the kids do with each other. So I figured it should be possible, and why not dive right in first day trying to do this.
Great, great. Maybe you can show us a little bit about your preparation and approach.
Yeah, so we use a distance learning tool, a platform in school. It's called Canvas, and I have a page for every class. So I made a page where I posted the climate game introductory video. I wanted my students to install the software beforehand, so I gave them the link to do that. And I always start the first gaming session by an introduction about gamification and what it does and why you want to do it. So I made a video of that introduction. You can just record your PowerPoint and that's it. So that's all preparation that I did on a Friday before. And I made a plan, which I held loosely at the time. Just made a plan, say, okay, our class was scheduled to start at 1:30. Just have them there, reserve some time watching the intro and installing the software, and we'll just meet online. And it was the first time, so we'll have to figure out which platform works best. Is it maybe WhatsApp? We know we can all talk in WhatsApp, but that we luckily didn't use that. MS Teams, Canvas online, maybe log into Tygron, we'll see. And then I was hoping I could have my students log into Tygron 4 at a time. So I withheld the passwords and the usernames for when I wanted them to log in. So I would have them log in 4 at a time so I could make them into a team. Because otherwise you have 12 or 16 students come in one at a time, and these computer names are random. And I figured, well, once everybody is in, we will start by level 1, have a break, level 2, level 3, if I can get everyone in their teams.
Yeah. Did it work out as planned?
No, not exactly. Well, first the communication platform, my students asked, well, can you meet us in Discord? And okay, what's that? Well, it turns out it's an online meeting environment where gamers meet while they play their game and communicate. They can share screens, and apart from meeting in a group, you can also have subgroups simultaneously. Everybody can share their screens. And it worked really well because I have students who are really good with their computers, and they could help others who had problems with the video cards, you know, the but for me, it was all new. For a lot of students, the Discord environment was also new. So that's a lot. It is a lot when you're trying to learn a new program like the Tygron, the climate game. And at the same time, the way of communicating is new. And I think that was a problem with trying to do all this in the first day of distance learning. And what will go better if I try it in a couple of weeks again, when we are all a bit more used to communicating at a distance and have programs for that we're used to. Well, first you have to consider, do you think all your students have the right hardware? Do they have laptops that can run the software? And if not, maybe you want to pair them up so they can share screens and look together. Another thing is make sure you know how to reach Tygron. So I had 2 games playing, and one team went really well, and the other ones, even after I had started the game, they kept looking at the blue screen and the continue button didn't appear. And that's the moment when you really just want to be there. You say, okay, let me just try and figure this out and close it off, try again. And that part takes longer. And make sure you have a new message opened up so you can just really easily write an email to the Tygron support. Make sure that you guys know that you're playing. And the most important tip is to remind yourself of your most important goal for doing this in the first place. It's about teaching them these environmental processes. It's about teaching them water management in cities. And do you think that playing climate game from a distance is still the most effective way, the most motivating way to teach them that? Don't be focused on the tool, be focused on the do, on the goal.
And but did you think that this session, or maybe your next session, will still be contributing to your learning goals enough? Will you be doing it again?
I will be doing it again because I love the game and the way it's stimulating, and students really like it. They're really so enthusiastic about it every time. I don't think it was really contributory this time because we couldn't really get them the second team working, and the Discord, the communication was all just too new. It was a lot for the first day. But I will surely go ahead and try again after the May holidays.
Great, thank you very much, Karin.
Well, Karin, thanks again.
Yeah.
I must say I hear quite a few similarities coming from your presentation with the previous presentations. For instance, being in time with the hardware setting and helping to get them together. I really liked your suggestion on trying to get students to help each other. This is, of course, also well, something that came along earlier before in this in the different presentations. Do you maybe have some suggestions for that? How do you get students? How do you encourage them to help each other?
Yes, I did write down that tip that that Henk gave us earlier, like in my sketchbook. Have expert student assistant, and I think that can work on all different kinds of levels. Also for students who try this for the first time. Our students are in a project or in the study geo, media and design. So there's always quite a substantial number of students who are very familiar with computers and who are quite technical. And we heard this in earlier discussions already, like there's students who are more technical like that. Probably they know so themselves. So I'd leave it up to them and say, well, why don't you pair up with someone? You can either be the expert or the helper, and go work together.
Great, good suggestion. I have one question coming in. Do you work with someone that gives you assignments for your courses? Do you work with external companies or people that help you?
In general, or for this course, I'll just answer regardless. Yeah, and in our school year, we work with 4 courses. And we try to have each course, so every semester there's 2 simultaneous courses. We try to have an external party, an opdrachtgever, who gives our students assignments, and then beside that we teach them other courses. So, so this climate game that I do with the first years is just part of a regular course that I teach, and I don't have external party for that who gives them the assignment. But then, yeah, there are in the full curriculum about 10, I'd say, of these assignments where we have opdrachtgevers.
No?
That's how I met Henk, I think, in first. I met Henk by Tygron, and then later had my third-year students do a project for Aeres when he was still working there.
What a coincidence. Huh? Yeah.
No.
Henk, can you share a little bit about your experiences with this? Are you still
Yeah,
there?
that's really great because we were struggling with applying the repeat game in group sessions, and the students of Karin, they did a complete overview of which measures have which impacts for which stakeholders, and they made wonderful cards with for all the users with nice graphics on it showing the impacts of the measures. And we have been applying those cards ever since, and the users really love those cards.
Cool. That's nice to hear.
Yeah, really good example of how yeah, assignments and students work together, and it works both ways, huh?
It really does, because students really like working for a real life assignment. Then they take it so much more seriously than just another assignment from school.
Yeah.
And it helps to help them realize something that Marien said in the beginning of our afternoon, that what we try to do is have them ready for real life, or when they're employed. So doing assignments really gives them that experience.
Okay, thank you very much, guys. Well, another good example of how important it is to get the community, keep the community running and more intensively, because some really great projects and results can come out of that. I'm looking at the time. I don't see any more questions for Karin coming in. If you have them, this is your opportunity. And otherwise, I would like to thank you very much, Karin, for your last minute contribution, and I hope it helps in the challenge that we're all still facing, working online in at least a couple of more weeks. Actually, I must say that we're doing a lot better than I expected time-wise. We have a little bit time left for some more questions that are coming in that are not specific for one presentation, but are more general about Tygron. And I will also be looking to my colleague Golief for that, maybe to answer some questions. I have a question coming in from Mendel. Yeah, let's start with the question about data. Golief, maybe if you're online, there is a question about how, if we want to see how environmental change can affect people's social behavior, like social interaction, is there any data available in Tygron, or is this possible in Tygron? And he's asking for any tips. So I think the question is how to connect environmental data with social data, and can Tygron help a little bit with that?
Well, there is some data from CPS, statistical data in the Tygron platform. You can click on the neighborhood and see statistics about the neighborhood. And if you have your own data, you can import it and show it in an overlay.
Someone's turning me off. There are quite some opportunities to use data on social data that are present in the platform, but if you want to combine and use more specific data on social behavior, you have to add them yourself, and we have the GeoData wizard to help you import these data. Yeah. Another question that was coming in was from Mendel, and he says there's a lot going on with cloud gaming and cloud computing. And the question is, are we considering this for the future so that the hardware is not such an issue anymore? And well, this is a very good question, Mendel. And yes, we are considering we're always looking at into the future to see what can help us and to try to reduce any hardware issues. So if cloud computing is a way to, well, make the platform available without having without having special laptops on site, this will work. So yes, definitely, this is something that we're very interested in, and we're always trying to improve, making use of the most recent developments. After all, we are a software company, and our core business also, and Maxim, he's not present here, but these are the things that make his heart beat faster. Thinking of these kind of things, how can we improve performance by using such things? Okay. Are there any more questions? Because otherwise I'm going to wrap up, I think. We're doing quite well time-wise, which is good news. As a wrap-up, we had a lot of questions coming in during the meeting. I think we've been able to answer quite a lot of questions, but we will be running through them. And if there are any questions left, then we will make sure that they will be answered. And also, if you think of anything after the sessions, and that please don't hesitate to use our forum or support email to ask the questions, and we'll make sure that that we'll get them. And for me, it was a really great session, and I've written down quite a lot of challenges to work on in the future. And but for me, the most important challenge that I hear from today is that, well, we set on in the good direction to work with instruments to help the community interact with each other. And this is something that is already working, but can be working a lot better, and will be so that this will be our challenge also for the future, to make sure that this community keeps running together, so that we can keep exchanging ideas and sharing knowledge, and also maybe sharing students and exchanging knowledge in a way like that. So yeah, I think that's a good wrap up, and I would like to thank you all so much for being here, because also, of course, this event is a great contribution to this community, and well, please, let's keep it going also after this event, and I hope I'll meet you again really soon on the forum or elsewhere. Thank you all.